Welcome to the Entangled Show, a weekly conversation where we bridge the gap between high-level physics and everyday reality. I'm your co-host, Pete Codella, streaming from Utah's Salt Lake Valley.
And I am Sumit Parashar. I am from Bhilai and live in Lehigh. I live in two places at once, just like a quantum particle. I coined the term Quantonomy, which is what this show is all about. Thanks for joining us. Pete, Ryan, good morning to you. Ryan, thank you so much for joining the show today. I don't have enough words to welcome you on the show. It's an absolute privilege and an honor to have you here with us. We've been running the show. We have had 3 or 4 episodes so far, but this is the first ever episode where we have a guest. And to have you as our first guest and somebody of your stature, somebody that has done so much for the state, it is an absolute honor to have you on the show. With that said, Pete, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, I'll just echo what Sumit said. Ryan, you and I have worked together for a handful of years and certainly followed your career. I think you mentioned maybe we first met at a Utah Chamber of Commerce event where I presented and was talking about social media, but you were my boss for a handful of years in the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and it's always great to spend time with you.
Well, thanks, Pete. It's great to spend time with you. People don't know this, but Pete has a fan club, and I'm the president of that fan club. He's just a very talented guy. Summit, it's always great to speak with you. You're a brilliant man, and Utah's lucky to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Thanks,
will
Ryan.
try to come up to the expectations there. So that said, Ryan, let's get started. Uh, we've prepared a few questions for you, but between Pete and I, we always go off the script, which is something that our viewers know. So maybe in this case too, we could do that. So please feel free to take any tangents on the question that could help us with the state. So right off the bat, what I want to say in the beginning of this episode is that usually our episodes are about quantum and the different terminology. But this particular episode is about Utah. I consider myself a soldier of Utah, so does Pete, and you are a leader of us, the soldiers, Ryan. And so we will quickly zoom in to what we can do as people working in quantum to make Utah look good and make Utah the #1 state. So that is the context, and that's where we'll take the discussion to. But to begin with, I will start out with a question that may not have been brought up earlier before. Is that we know that you have good roots in Heber Valley, and I want you to share your journey and your experiences that led you from Heber Valley to leading Utah's premier recruitment engine. And you used this building together philosophy. So I want you to give us some context on that and guide us along those lines.
Well, thanks for the great question. And life's been good. I grew up in the Ogden Valley area, up in a place called Huntsville in Eden. It's a small, remote community. Life was simple as a child, growing up catching frogs, riding my bike, just making trouble, doing the things that kids do. And had the opportunity to go to Weber State University. I then lived in Ecuador for a couple of years to do some church service. And when I came back from Ecuador, I went to Weber State. I met my wife. We have 4 kids. And then eventually my career took me up to Heber Valley, which is Wasatch County. In the 2002 Olympics, Heber Valley hosted 2 of the Olympic Games, the cross country and the biathlon. And that really put Heber on the map. The state had invested a lot of infrastructure into the Wasatch County area, and it's such a desirable place to live and to work and to play. So in 2010, 2011, after completing grad school, I was presented with an offer to lead the Chamber of Commerce and the tourism and the economic development for this up and coming place called Heber. And I lived there for 10 years, had the opportunity to work there for 8 years. And my philosophy became, the sum of all of us is so much greater than the work of just one of us. And it really does take a community to work together to do big things. And so as a community, we did big things. We helped put Heber on the map in terms of being a global destination for tourism. We strengthened the business community. We were able to help create a lot of jobs and develop a industrial park near the Heber City Airport, and then work closely with state leaders who developed something called the Mayflower Project by Extel. And now today, if you were to drive by the Jordanelle area in the backside of Deer Valley, you'll see ski lifts and new hotels. And so really just a wonderful opportunity to be part of a growing community. One of my mantras in life is to have important mentors. And one of those mentors to me was a gentleman named Val. Val had, he and I had got to know each other previously, and he just was one of those figures in my life who was encouraging and just helpful to me at every step of my career. So in 2019, Val called and he said, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you to come join the Governor's Office of Economic Development to oversee the rural programs and a lot of the startup programs and just kind of a diverse portfolio of services and programs that the state offered." And so after 8 years in Heber Valley, I decided to kind of make the jump. And that's where I had the privilege of working with Pete Codella and with Val and with a really talented team. There were no egos. It was all about building each other and building Utah's economy. And once we had a new governor, eventually I had the opportunity to be named the executive director and to help lead that agency for a couple of years. So during that time, I just learned a lot about economic development, a lot about Utah, its people, our work ethic, our DNA, our entrepreneurial spirit. And let's see, I guess this would have been last year in 2025, I had the opportunity to kind of jump ship and leave the governor's office and work for an organization called the Economic Development Corporation of Utah, EDCUtah. It's a 40-year-old organization made up of public and private sector members. We have over 250 partners. We help drive economic development at the grassroots level through all parts of the state. And we look at things like macroeconomic trends, but then we also work with companies seeking to expand into Utah. We provide marketing, research, and just help facilitate successful transitions for companies into the state. And so I feel like I've been very blessed to have some unique experiences. I've been blessed to work with some great people along the way, to have some great mentors. And I love Utah. I love what we're doing now, and it's wonderful to be on your show. So.
And Ryan, you were being modest about your time at Weber State University. You were the student body president how many years?
Just 1 year.
1 year.
It was a wonderful year. It actually inspired me to pursue public service. I had the chance to serve on the board of trustees. And at the time, the university president was Ann Milner, who now serves as a state senator. And so it just inspired me to do more, to give back to the community, and really set me down a path of public service.
The other cool thing about Ryan's experience that I like to tell is he was actually an intern in the Office of Economic Development. And then, all those years later was appointed by the governor as the executive director. That's a pretty awesome Boomerang employee story where you're working in the trenches and then leading the organization. And my favorite experience with Ryan in the Office of Economic Development was when he showed up for Halloween as Fat Thor. That was awesome.
It was really fun. I had the long hair, the sunglasses, and a costume on. And one of our colleagues, Vicky Varela, she had no idea it was me. And
hey, so many people didn't.
Yeah.
So many people didn't know who you were.
Yeah. We had a lot of good times in that office, didn't we, Pete?
We did.
Yeah, a really strong culture, very team focused.
Cool. And, Pete, of course, I've had that feedback from you. But Ryan, just to let you know, there are a few others that I've spoken to, GoYo and EDC, who consider themselves not as your employee or as your coworker, but they're all your fans. So you had that trend going, from the beginning. On the statement about Heber and leading the recruitment engine, my key takeaway is ego-less building together. I think if we can implement that across the state, across enterprises, I think we will all be living in a better place. So thanks for sharing that insight. Um, so Ryan, you are a celebrity. Everybody knows you in Utah. There's a lot of interviews out there on YouTube, LinkedIn posts. So yeah, true celebrity from where I see. But there must be something that people don't know about you. So LinkedIn is good. Your bios and resumes, interviews are good. But just to make this show and this episode special, could you please share something about yourselves that is not out there in the wild between the LinkedIn and bios and the YouTube interviews?
That's a really good question. Since I was probably in 5th grade, I've collected basketball cards, more specifically Michael Jordan cards. And so, being a Michael Jordan fan in Utah presented a number of challenges growing up. One time I had the opportunity to go to the Utah Jazz Chicago Bulls NBA Finals game. And this was 1998. I wore a Michael Jordan jersey, and people stood up and taught me some words that I hadn't heard up to that point in my life.
In a nice Utah way.
That's right. And so for the first quarter, we got to sit close to the court and right by the tunnel where the Bulls came out. It was amazing to see Michael Jordan, who was my childhood kind of icon and hero. And so then the seat owners actually came to reclaim their seats, and we had to climb back up to the top, the nosebleed section. But throughout my life, I've been collecting basketball cards, and during COVID-19, I think a lot of middle-aged people like me went back to their roots and said, what can we do during this devastating time? And so we dusted off our cards, and I got back into the hobby, which has exploded in a big way. And I have many of them that are graded. I have rookie cards. I have a card that has part of the Utah Jazz court embedded into the card from his very last game. And so it's just kind of one of those silly things that I collect and I enjoy. But if someone ever wants to come over, I'd be happy to showcase the collection.
We would love that. And it's not silly in any way. We are all collectors of sorts, and good to learn about your passion about card collection along those lines. And with your permission, we will actually share this with the world.
Oh, of course. And let it be noted too that Michael Jordan is and will always be the GOAT. And to those LeBron fans, let me just remind them that he ain't got nothing on MJ. So.
All right, that's it, Pete. Over to you.
Hey, Ryan, you know that I grew up as a kid in Houston, Texas, and went to high school in upstate New York and came to BYU for college. So the whole Utah University rivalry thing was a bit new and foreign to me. I got an MBA from the University of Utah. I have a bachelor's degree from BYU. And when I started my MBA program, they gave me a hat that had the Y logo on one side and the U logo on the other side. And shortly after I received the hat, on a game Saturday, BYU versus Utah football, I wore my hat to Costco on a Saturday, and I learned that was not a good choice because everyone hated me for wearing that hat. And I'm like, I have degrees from both. I don't care who wins as long as one of them wins. And that was not the right answer.
Well, we live and we learn, don't we?
We do. So Utahns are funny about sports. Well, Ryan, let's talk a little about your experience in the Office of Economic Opportunity. You went on a number of governor-led trade missions. You've represented the state in lots of pretty impressive and foreign international settings. And the goal of those things is to make connections, to make introductions, to develop relationships so that business can be done in Utah. Foreign direct investment comes, bring offices, headquarters, things like that. Would you just address maybe some of your experience on some of those governor-led trade missions and why they're important and then maybe talk about how technology plays a role in some of that recruitment. I think we could go back to the Governor Mike Leavitt administration, and see how he looked at Silicon Valley and said,
Yeah.
we want those tech companies in Utah. And honestly, we should credit Governor Leavitt with what Lehigh looks like today, and the economic engine that is what we call Silicon Slopes. So maybe address some of that for us.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Pete. I think Governor Leavitt deserves all of the praise that he can possibly get. He was a pioneer in terms of looking forward with technology, with engineering, with tech companies. So I'm grateful for good leadership, and we've had good leadership throughout the state since. Governors, state leaders, private sector leaders investing into Utah, really fulfilling this vision of who we can all become. It was really unique to spend time with Governor Cox and to participate in these trade missions throughout various places in the world. A couple that stand out, we did a trip to Israel, and then the second part of the trip was to Dubai. And it was kind of the old world and the new world.
Hmm.
And just seeing the juxtaposition there was really insightful and enlightening to me. So starting in Israel, they had kind of self-proclaimed that Israel was the startup capital of the world, or the startup nation. And so it was a fact-finding mission. How do they deal with things like water conservation? How do they put their stamp on innovation? What makes their startup ecosystem so successful? And so we were able to learn a lot of lessons. One of the big lessons was you have to have vision, and you have to plant the seeds. And it doesn't happen overnight, but with everybody kind of rowing together, you can do some big things. And so that was really insightful. We then went to Dubai. We met with various ministers and country leaders. One of the ministers we met with was the Minister of AI. And we thought, wow, there's a Minister of Artificial Intelligence leading the way. And so this person and his team would work closely with the business community and represent the government and ensure that policies were being implemented and investment was being secured to advance AI in Dubai. And so just seeing what other national leaders had done, I think, was inspiring to our administration. We were able to take trips also to places like Canada, where we toured a nuclear facility, a small modular reactor. We were able to go to places like Mexico and Japan and Korea, and to just understand what makes them tick. And so I think we could share some good ideas. We could also bring back a lot of good ideas. One lesson that I think, emphasize is it's a globally competitive economy. Utah's not alone. We're not the only ones making investments. Foreign countries are making investments, and I think it's inspiring for Utah to up our game and to, have clear focus on who we want to be and what we want to do. So really unique opportunities. Loved every trade mission. At the same time, I'm also enjoying not having to travel as much and less grind in my daily life. So
It might be interesting to note that trip to Canada, I think Utah was the first state to visit Canada when the relationship between our two countries was a bit tenuous, and
absolutely.
current administrations were, let's say, not super friendly towards one another.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a great example of how Utah does things in its own way.
And the nice thing on that, Pete, is having the state relationship with the national partners like Canada put us in a unique spot. We could represent that we weren't here on behalf of the United States, but we were here on behalf of the state of Utah. And we actually signed a memorandum of agreement to work closely together to share best practices from an education and an economic development perspective. And that's something that we tried to do with each of the different trade missions in Mexico, in Korea, and Canada, is to sign MOUs or partnership agreements to work together.
And another thing highlighting, I think, Summit's point about economic development in Utah and how can Utah lead in a quantum environment. I just want to highlight, maybe this came because of the Israel trip, but the Utah Department of Commerce has the AI lab And I think our state really led out in some artificial intelligence ways and continues to do so through a regulatory lens.
They did, and kudos to the state for having foresight to get in front of AI. There's kind of two approaches. There's a proactive approach to embrace it and to integrate it. And then there's also a perspective of we have to put guardrails around it, especially as it relates to youth and to schools and things. So how do we make it a tool that can be something that helps Utah, not hurts Utah? The Department of Commerce, Margaret's a good friend and just a respected colleague. She and her team have done a great job working closely with the legislature. And so it is nice to be in a state that cares about this, that sees the value of AI, that puts some business-friendly regulations around AI. And I think that's one of those things that makes Utah so special.
And for our listeners, I'll tease that you may be hearing from Margaret in a future episode.
Excellent. I would also say it's our universities. You know, the University of Utah, for example, has a lot of focus on AI, on quantum. These researchers are brilliant people thinking ahead, thinking about the impact of what quantum can do to Utah's economy, to our businesses nationally. And so we need that R&D. Without that R&D and without the focus on quantum, then we're just always going to be playing catch up. But by investing those dollars and making the effort, I think it positions Utah to be in a place of strength.
Beautiful, Ryan. So thanks for bringing up Margaret Busse. As you know, I am in AI too, and I've been connected with Department of Commerce, and we regularly attend their events. I think they have been doing what you just mentioned before at the beginning of the discussion, is egoless building together. They are part of the state government, but still they open themselves up to feedback to the public. Somebody like me can just walk into a meeting with them, give them a few ideas, and they are okay with it. But yeah, I completely agree that Margaret Busse, she has done a phenomenal job, and hopefully, even with quantum, we'll be able to bring her into the limelight and get her guidance along with you to lead the state and to get the state in a leadership spot, not only in the US, but in the world. That's sort of the dream.
Well, I think it's a good vision, and I think people listen to you because of who you are and because you're smart and you have a lot to offer. So glad that you and Margaret are close. She's a rock star, and I'm sure she'll do way better on this podcast than I do. So
thank you. So, the research and development point, I think let's go back into it and drill down upon it. Quantum, as you know, is, it's a new tech. It is such a new tech that people are kind of afraid of the word quantum. One of the objectives of this podcast is to demystify quantum and to express, quantum related behaviors in such a way that it becomes lingua franca and people can understand. So with that said, the next wave is going to be a lot of quantum computers usage in the state. The beauty of what we are doing is it's not just quantum computers, it's an entire ecosystem. So one of my favorite topics in quantum is quantum sensing. So from where I see, the idea or the vision is that you can have two sensors in two different places, and there's a quantum behavior that you can apply to these quantum sensors, which is entanglement. But if you have a sensor one and a sensor two, and if we are able to entangle those two, regardless of the distance or where these or the location where these sensors are, they know pretty much what the other one is doing. So along these lines, and along the lines of what you said, which is R&D, there is an idea where we can build sensors that can help the rural sector in Utah. So agriculture, as we know, is a big focus of yours. You are one of the rare few who has actually visited all the 29 counties. And so maybe there is a USU play in here too, but if we are able to bring in such concepts into reality where you have two sensors talking to each other and communicating with home, if we are able to get that done, what would be your feedback about what that would do to Utah's economy?
I think it would do a lot to Utah's economy. I mean, you think about how technology advancement's accelerating in a big way. And so we used to hear the word AI almost like it was this far off, distant concept. And then suddenly, how many times do we hear AI per day? It's taken over. And then quantum's going to have a similar effect, but even be accelerated in a greater way. And so I think what quantum can do in terms of bridging the gap between rural and urban parts of the state is significant as it relates to agriculture, like you said, water, power, transportation. And so I think it really does have the potential to just change the way we live our daily lives. Right now it's 2026, we're in March. What does the world look like in 2036? I just feel like we're going to see such an acceleration of this technology speed. I mean, our telecommunication systems, for example, our computers, everything are going to just accelerate in terms of the speed and the capabilities. Something that's interesting in 2022, the U.S. government invested $1.8 billion into quantum R&D. And so just in this short time, I think we've seen significant advancements. How do we ensure that we continue to get more investments from the federal government, from the state government into R&D for quantum? I think that's going to be key for us. And again, I think it comes down to those university partnerships and having a business-friendly state government. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's the private sector that invests into creating jobs and investing into infrastructure. And so it's a partnership. We have the private sector, the government, R&D investment. When it all comes together, we're going to see this acceleration of quantum in a big way.
And if I may,
Awesome.
I just want to add a little more color to what Sumit introduced as by way of context. Ryan did visit all 29 counties as part of his role as executive director in the Office of Economic Opportunity. And for all I know, that could have been the first time an executive director from that office, from the governor's office, has done that, to talk about what's your strategy for your economic development. What do you want to see in your county? How can the state help support you achieve your goals? We all know Utah is as diverse as its geography. Different areas rely on tourism. Different areas rely on lots of different industries. And a cool thing about Utah is that its economy pretty closely mirrors the United States economy. The Hatchman Index talks about how diverse an economy is, and Utah's always right up there in the top handful of categories. So just want to say kudos to Ryan for visiting and for asking for having that strategic economic development discussion with each of those county leaders.
I think it was healthy for the state to be in touch with these people and healthy for the people to hear from the state. So in my new role here at EDCUtah, I plan on doing something similar, being out there with the people. That's really where you can get the insight and the information needed to help shape decisions. So it's awesome. I do want to say too, I think our educational partnerships are really important. So the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the NIST, has launched this National K-12 Education Partnership. And I think Utah has an opportunity to get on board to start to integrate curriculum into our schools so that people are starting to think of quantum as not, again, some far off concept, but something that's going to impact our daily lives. And then I learned recently that April 14th of this year, so just in a couple of weeks, is National Quantum Day. So it's a chance for us to celebrate, and maybe the nerds of us can do something. I don't know. We'll pull out a trumpet and make some noise or something. But
Awesome.
That's beautiful. So Ryan, we are in this arena of quantum, but what we are hearing from you, the last two things we heard was about NIST, the K-12, and the April 14th milestone. All I will say is thank you for sharing that information. I think we've been living under a rock. We should come out of it and, invite you again and again to actually, feed us information in terms of what is going on outside. Uh, NIST K to 12, I will definitely look that up. I did not know that. Uh, Me and Pete, we are passionate about, like I said, demystifying quantum. Or I came up with this word called quantonomy, which I thought would bridge the gap between, scientists and day-to-day commoners like us. Along the lines of that K to 12 effort by NIST, I will send in a request to them saying, please consider using quantonomy as a word. So thanks for the heads up. Loved it.
Yeah, I
And
think
obviously, go ahead, Ryan.
I don't know who is in charge of this, but some group each year comes up with the word of the year. So let's aim for 2027 having quantonomy be the word of the year.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. And if with your permission, we will quote you on that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Pete, you were saying?
I was just going to comment that astrology, right, the study of the stars, and quantonomy, study of all things related to quantum. So I do think demystifying and making quantum more of an everyday accessible part of conversation and lexicon, and letting people understand what it means and how it's really a different approach to computing than what we have now. That is an important goal for what we're doing with the Entangled show.
Awesome. And we need good voices like both of you out there sharing the good message of what we can become. And so kudos to both of you. It's exciting.
Thank you. So switching topics a little bit, you mentioned involving universities, academia, and from them we can ask for help in terms of research and development with this new field of quantum. But then there's always this big aspect of workforce development. So based on what we are seeing in the next couple of years or so, we should be getting some hands-on development done on quantum computers. So our idea is that before the world gets to that point in time, here in Utah, we should have a workforce ready to tackle that challenge. Not only tackle, actually take over that challenge, because with quantum hardware is pretty expensive to get into, but in Utah we have a lot of talent. So your views on workforce development for quantum?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. What could the state of Utah do to help foster a workforce that's ready for quantum? One of the thoughts that I had is, could one of our premier universities, perhaps Utah State or the University of Utah or others, create some type of minor or major, but even a minor in quantum? What was the term again? Quantology.
Quantonomy.
Thank you. So a minor in quantonomy, for example, where students are taking classes, learning. Hypothetically, a student graduates with a degree in business and a minor in quantonomy, and now it's at the forefront. They're thinking through a different lens. And so that's one idea. And then I know our Talent Ready Utah team at the Utah System of Higher Education is honestly probably one of the best, if not the best, in the country. They work closely with industry. They try to get ahead of workforce needs, and then they create these pathways with industry so that a student can actually go into a field of study, go into a company, gain some experience, graduate, and then have a job ready to go. And so if you can just align the resources between Talent Ready Utah and private industry, suddenly we're going to have a workforce that's prepared and ready to grab the bull by the horn. So
such a great call out to Talent Ready Utah, because it's not just about a 4-year degree anymore, or a graduate degree, but sometimes technical training and certificate training and those specific programs that help connect workers to job opportunities. So important.
yeah, and I love what both of you are doing to demystify. I think that's the key. The term quantum can be overwhelming, or you feel like you have to be a rocket engineer or something to understand it. But if we can make it something that's more common and integrated into our curriculums. That's what's going to help Utah stay strong.
That's awesome. And Brian, you know, this is that I have another group that I'm running, which is supposed to be a collective of people just interested in quantum technologies, which is Utah Quantum. Um, so within that, we've actually reached out to multiple universities. So the idea would be to connect the dots with all of them, you know, starting from northernmost USU to the southernmost UTU. And we have been successful in actually getting their attention. And we actually have support from a few of those too. But you know, having a group or a department start out with Quantonomy as the objective that encapsulates all the quantum sciences like quantum mechanics, quantum physics, quantum gravity, and so on. So I will take that idea and run with it, and we will come back and report to you on what we did about that.
That's great. And while we're just spitballing here, a lot of other industries that started out as just small really have grown because of the power of associations. And so you look at Silicon Slopes, for example, you look at 47G, you look at BioHive. So having a group of like-minded people working for a common cause or a common goal could go a long way. So perhaps Quantonomy becomes the association for Utah, where private sector, university partners, lawmakers are all working together. Perhaps there's grants and funding opportunities. And how cool would it be to look back in 5 or 10 years and say, hey, look at what we've built to advance quantum in Utah.
So Ryan, you'll probably not believe this, but Silicon Slopes and 47G were a part of my next question. So you kind of stole my thunder there.
Oh, well.
But I got BioHive as the next thing too. So I have a request for you. You know, since we brought them up, is I'm going to be more closely associated with Silicon Slopes when it comes to quantum going forward. There should be an announcement pretty soon. 47G. Aaron and 47G, I've been connected with them. You know, I love Aaron, tremendous respect for him. You know, he's he's amazing. So from this platform, what message would you want to send to Clint at Silicon Slopes and Aaron at 47G?
Well, I tell them both to get their act together and to start doing some important things. I'm just kidding. They're both doing great work, and it's fun to work with both of them as colleagues. One happens to be a brother, but also a colleague. And so I think what Clint's done from the early days is just set a tone for tech in Utah. Going back to those trade missions, whenever we'd go to Canada or Mexico or Korea, we'd often hear things like, yeah, we hear good things about Utah, you know, and you guys have something called Silicon Slopes. That's ingenious. And so it really is a global branding opportunity. And so I think it's paying dividends. So kudos to Clint. And then what Aaron's done with 47G has just been remarkable, especially in such a short amount of time, trying to get into the forefront of hard tech and making sure Utah is ready for everything that's coming, from unmanned vehicles to air taxis to rocket launches. And so it's fun. Now, where I would coming kind of wearing my hat from EDC Utah is to be an extension of both of those teams. We don't need to replicate anything or reinvent the wheel, but to support them and have them support us. Just this month, we'll just say this, there will be an announcement later this month about a aerospace and defense company receiving state support to expand in a big way into Utah. And so that's the power of the partnership. We can pull levers, we can work together. Now, as we start to integrate quantum and just this idea of making quantum the next focal point in the state, I think it takes all of us working together, soft tech, hard tech, state government, corporate recruitment, business expansion, and it just then creates this ecosystem that is really rich and poised for more growth. So.
Thank you. I will personally make sure that they both get this message.
All right.
Pete,
And
over to
Ryan,
you.
you've really highlighted what was next on my mind, and then we'll turn it to Sumit for the final thoughts here. But that is that we've often heard that collaboration and cooperation is kind of part of Utah's secret sauce when it comes to not only business, but politics, education, just that Utahns, even though we have different opinions, right? We strive to be respectful. We've seen Governor Cox lead out on his Disagree Better campaign, but we also try to get to a solution, whether it's a compromise or what have you. But that Utah secret sauce of collaboration and just working together to solve hard problems is an important part of Utah. And I think your previous answer just kind of highlighted that.
And I would add to that, Pete, that you're right. It is our secret sauce. However, it doesn't always just happen naturally. It requires work and intentionality. And as the state gets bigger, as we see more groups and more pressing needs with growth, sometimes that secret sauce gets watered down. So I think it's up to people like us to continue to put in the right ingredients and to continue to collaborate. I mean, we see the state doing a lot of good work, and I think the partnerships are strong. I also see some erosion happening with certain partnerships and with different mentalities of egos and people wanting credit for everything. Well, that's not the way Utah works. And so it's going to require more intentionality, more effort, deliberate effort to work together. But I think we can keep that secret sauce, and moving forward, it's a good recipe for success.
Sumit, wrap us up.
So, Ryan, now we are going to turn the tables on you, and we have asked you a million questions, and we want you to ask us questions in terms of this discussion or beyond this, in terms of quantum and things like that.
I would love to get your perspective on quantum, looking through the lens of where's Utah going to be in the next 10 years and what role will quantum have. I think, Sumit, how do you envision quantum changing Utah in a positive way?
Ryan, quantum has this tremendous set of possibilities. In all simplicity, if we wake up right now, take action, get some state funding, and also use some of that to get federal funding, the possibilities are tremendous. With Utah Quantum, I've been trying to connect the dots, get everybody together, academia, industry, and the government. We have had some success, but not so much. So I think we'll have to kind of drill down on that. But right now, we are nowhere on the map, literally. So of the 50 states, Utah is nowhere when it comes to quantum. Me and my team, we have been doing deep research on where all the states are at in terms of their collaboration with federal agencies, in terms of their federal funding or the funding they have received, in terms of internal funding that they have come up with, and in terms of, like you said, the private sector support that they got. Maryland at this point in time is the #1 state in Utah. And I kid you not, if we have
the #1 state in the country.
In the country, I'm sorry. Maryland is the #1 state in country when it comes to quantum. Lot of and taking a step back, Ryan, you had this discussion with Clint where you said, we are rising, but we are somewhere in the middle when it comes to economy, when it comes to the entire country. With quantum, we are so far back is that, the only North Star that we can take is Maryland right now. Kudos to them. They got in early. They realized that after AI, quantum is something that everybody will be looking at. And so their funding overall as of this year for quantum is $1 billion. How much of that came from the federal government? How much of that came from the state? We don't know. The other big thing they have going for them is federal agencies like NIST. They are now calling Maryland their home for quantum research. So it's time for us to kind of wake up. And I'm saying big words here, but thanks for letting me have the soapbox. But we do need to wake up. We need to get started and then look at these top 5 states in terms of what they have done. Uh, Maybe learn from their experiences. We have the younger sibling advantage where we may be able to see what others did wrong and learn from them. But when all of that is said and done, when we have a quantum computer in Utah, owned by the state probably, or one of the bigger universities that is shared across the ecosystem, that is milestone number one. And milestone number two is that quantum computer should be opened up to Silicon Slope startups, to 47G startups, and to companies who cannot afford to buy time over a quantum computer right now. When that happens, when there are talent in Utah can access quantum computers, we can get stuff done. No doubt in my mind, there is going to be people who will be crazy about working on quantum computers, and we have no shortage of talent that can leverage the hardware and the software combination of quantum. So all of that in place, we ourselves can benefit from that quantum experience or quantum setup. Agriculture could be the first industry that we could touch. Defense and aerospace, with 47G out there, with Aaron leading the charge. Uh, I will not drill down on that, but there are tremendous possibilities that quantum can bring when it comes to DoD. Healthcare, there is a massive open field right now to go and occupy in terms of skill set, in terms of capabilities. So I can go on and on, Ryan, but there is a lot that we need to do, but we need to start now.
And I would add to that list financial services and technology. Feels like it's ripe for quantum capabilities. Well, I love your feedback. That's helpful. I think we can just annex Maryland into the state of Utah and claim it as our own. So
let's do it.
A thought that I've had as we've talked is that we've heard the song "Video Killed the Radio Star." And in the early 2000s, when social media came out, everyone was like, "Oh, social media, it's going to take over everything." And as someone in public relations and communications as my background, I just would tell people that my perspective is it's another tool in the toolkit, right? It's expanding the toolkit. It's not going to kill what went on before. But the more I've learned about quantum, it is a paradigm shift. It is a different way of computing. It's a different way of getting things done. It's exponentially faster and more efficient. So it is kind of rebuilding and a new thing. And as you look at the future, I think Hollywood's a good example. And you can think of Star Trek and Beam Me Up, Scotty, and Warp Drive, and all those things. It will be the technology to drive that. I mean, quantum will get us to the next step for those types of opportunities. And Sumit and I've talked about, space travel and things like that before, but it is a bold new future that's ahead. And we have to have the education. We have to have the thought leaders and the resources to get there.
It's an exciting time to be alive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said, Pete and Brian. We have seen so many technologies come and go. I will say just one more thing, and then I'll let you ask the second question to Pete. But there is, in terms of sense of urgency, there is something else that we should consider right now, which could become an advantage for Utah going forward, is that we're actually facing a risk and a danger that nobody's paying attention to right now. And that risk and that danger is called the quantum cliff. So the idea is that when we send credit cards over the internet to buy something from Amazon, our machine and Amazon's machine have an exchange going on where we garble the data or encrypt the credit card number, and then we decrypt it on the other side. So that's a simple encryption decryption mechanism that we've been using. The danger now, the red flag now, is that couple of years down the line, when quantum computers are up and working, this encryption will be broken. NIST already has come up with standards and algorithms on what we can do as of right now to protect ourselves from that scenario. But I would love to have a bigger discussion along these lines, and I would love to have DTS, somebody from DTS, and Silicon Slopes, 47G, BioHive, all of them kind of in one place, and just share this red flag with them, saying, "Hey, you guys are not paying attention right now. In 6 months or a year, you will. It might be too late by then, but we would love your help in actually spreading the word about quantum cliff with everyone."
Really fascinating. It's scary, and I'm glad that you're thinking about that. So, well, I actually don't have any other questions for Pete. I think this conversation's been wonderful, and I think you've addressed my questions, and so appreciate the opportunity to join both of you today.
Awesome. Pete, please go ahead and wrap us up.
Well, Ryan, we so appreciate your willingness to give of your time and to join us for this episode. And again, thank you for what you're doing to lead out in the state with economic development, being in that public-private space with the Economic Development Corporation of Utah. You're certainly an important state leader and thought leader, and we appreciate your kindness and your friendship. And the future is bright when it comes to quantum, and it'll be exciting to see what happens here in this next decade. So thank you, Ryan, for joining us, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
The Entangled Show podcast is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe to the pod. Connect with us at entangled.show or send an email to info@entangled.show. I'm Pete Codella. Thanks for listening.
I am Sumit Parashar, signing off for now. Thanks again for joining us here at the Entangled Show. We'll see you next time.